Well, the verdict is in, and Amber Heard loses big in the Johnny Depp Amber Heard defamation case. What this means, next up on Just a Talk. So let's talk about it. And welcome to the Flicks Picks and the Nitpicks, and I am your humble host, Nove718, and we are going to get into this edition of Just to Talk, and we're going to talk about Amber Heard and how she lost, but not just her. There's a reason why I titled it She Loses Big, because Johnny Depp lost, but he only lost in 2 million. She lost in 15, 5 plus 10, and then I heard they scrolled it back down because I guess she couldn't get so much in one of the cases. It was like a cap, so I think it was like 12 or something like that, some weird number, like or a little over 10. So basically she has to call for the difference. From what I understand, that's anywhere from 8 to 10. I'm not going to get into the numbers right now, the accuracy of the numbers right now, because I'll probably revisit this sometime down the line to have a better recap of the whole case, but more importantly, how it affects the entertainment industry, this is what this is about. I don't want to get too much into the social commentary of it because, well, you can't really escape it, but I don't want to get more in depth with it than I need to, at least not on this platform, because there's no need to. The bottom line is that this is all about the stuff that we love in movies and the things around movies, and this is definitely around movies, but we really need to figure out how this is going to affect us moving forward for the movies that we love. For those that are fans of the Pirates of the Caribbean, will now with this loss, will we see, or do you believe that they'll actually do a Pirates of the Caribbean 6? I think it's possible, but no time soon. They'll give it some time. They'll give it about, like, before they even announce it, another, like, maybe a year or two. I probably lean more on 2 to 3, just to give it as much distance, but not mostly that. See how the Johnny Depp is received by the people, how he handles it post the situation, because he could probably play himself out. You know, look what Amber Heard did. You know, they want to space the time out, see if Johnny Depp is really going to make a bigger change for himself. And I think this is where we're going to really get into what Johnny Depp should do moving forward. But as it pertains to the case and its ripple effects throughout the industry, will it affect him reprising the role? And I think it's more possible, more in his vein. But I also could think, especially with the new merger, even though Zaslav does want to repair his relationship, is on the record for wanting to repair his relationship with the talents, he also is about the money. He's a bottom line kind of guy. And the question is will there be more money in the comeback? We got to understand that even though the last Pirates of the Caribbean made a lot of money, you know, in terms of profit, it's not as profitable as they would have wanted it to be or needed it to be. You know, it's still profitable enough to go a second go out, but for what the Pirates of the Caribbean's budget has been, you would have to vastly drop that budget down. Vastly. And some people, unfortunately, believe the higher the budget should go higher, the more successful the film is, as opposed to just thinking about what the film would need. And if the film doesn't need a big budget, it doesn't need to. You don't need to keep going bigger and bigger to tell bigger stories. You can tell bigger stories without having it to be larger than life. You know what I mean? Where you have to spend excess of too much money just to show this CG fest in the background at the end to one up the last film. That being said, though, with public opinion having so much power, and we've seen it, you know, in the films. You know, we've seen it with Sonic. We've definitely seen it with Zack Snyder, both for and against him. We definitely seen it with Bill Cosby. You know what I mean? And let's not even go too far with that, because at the end of the day, all of it was public opinion ruining the careers of artists in entertainment, and we never really find out if any of this is true. A lot of this is, by definition, he said, she said. But in this case with the Amber Heard trial, which I watched closely, believe me, I watched it, I listened to it damn near every day. You know what I'm saying? It was very entertaining. And we definitely got our winners in Miss Camille Vasquez. She's got a fan in me. But most importantly, just to see how this will affect. And listen to the public opinion, paying attention to how this was reported in the news and online. I mean, to be quite honest, it looked like Johnny Depp was going to win regardless. He won the people, won before. Like Amber Heard lost the people a long time ago. I mean, it was one of those things with Amber Heard. It would have behooved her to have been humble enough to know when to walk away. When she won the first case, she should have just took the money, walked. Saying all that stuff is not about the money when you knew it was about the money was just bogus. If you wasn't going to stand behind anything that you was going to say, because remember, if this was all built on the foundation of a bullshit story, then you didn't need to add too much more bullshit to your story. And that's what she did, and then imploded upon herself. Because everything rose, she one-upped it. I think, to be quite frankly, she was just saying, it got to a point where she was just talking too much. Saying too much, whatever it took to sway the audience. I think in a lot of ways, this was kind of a role for her. Albeit the biggest role of her life at this point in Crossing. But I think this was like a big role for her, because watching the case, it seemed like she was actually performing. And even at one point, it was said that because I noticed she wasn't crying, and they said that her acting coach said that she had a hard time crying when acting. That said a lot. Now, I don't remember that coming up there. I seen that isolated, but remember, I've been listening to this all day long, and while I've been doing stuff, so I could have missed certain small informations like that. But I remember it on the recap, and I laughed to myself because I was like, yo, man, how the tear came out. We seen this before several times over in the courtroom. And that being said, she is now pariah, social pariah. Johnny Depp won the hearts of the people. He was winning it public opinion from the gate, from the rip and running. Even when, if you ask me, he played himself a few times and he got caught in it. With Malice, you did want to get her fired off the show. I mean, albeit I don't know how you could blame him for what his lawyer said, but I also understand this association. But especially, if I'm not mistaken, he wasn't his lawyer at the moment when he said it. Or rather, he wasn't like on the duty. It's not like he made an official comment, but because he was a lawyer of his prior, him even saying that pulled him into that situation, because it could appear to be on his behalf. But she lost only like $2 million to his 15 awarded, or whatever it is after adjusted, that she has to pay the difference. So this is a good look for him, but he has to be very careful moving forward with how he gets around this, and he's making great statements so far. Will there be another Pirates? I do think it's more likely now than ever, even though it was rumored that they were going to go gender swap it. And I think they had the girl that played Harley Quinn. Oh man, I'm forgetting her name right now. Margot Robbie. And from what I understood, that's who was going to be Captain Jack Sparrow in a rebooted, reprised version of the series. I don't think they're going to do that. This is not like especially now that public opinion says Johnny is back, and you know what I mean. Everybody wants him back. Will the J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter series, will he come back to that? Because I know he got recasted before, and from what I understood, they made a great explanation for how he changed and why. Maybe they can make a reasoning for him changing back. If that was the case, and they made an excusable reason for why he looks different in this film, you know, could he come back in like that, and they make another reasoning for why he changed? And I think people will actually like that. I think there's currency, and I think there's bread in it. Zaslav will look at that. You know, don't get me wrong. I don't think he's interested in any more drama. So on the low, if he could cut ties, he cut ties. But as long as Johnny Depp is breathing, especially post winning, if you will, the defamation case, it will behoove him, if you're trying to stay out of drama, to just hire him back and continue the series. If it flops miserably next time and drop the budget a lot less than before going into it, but if it does like not do well, then you have a reason for rebooting it. Zaslav does not want to create more issues and arguing with the fan. He doesn't want that. He wants to replicate what Disney has done, minus the Disney success, minus the drama behind it. He doesn't want a Star Wars fandom. I'll be honest with you, he'd reboot the whole fucking WB if there wasn't so many movies already in play that he has to pay attention to. Because the more movies that, no matter which one, you know, any movie coming out of DCU now is gonna give life to anything that they have currently going that exists even inside the Snyderverse and outside of it, because it all started from Snyder's vision. So either way you look at it, both sides better hope that Black Adam is successful, Blue Beetle is successful. You better hope, because otherwise he might just say, "Yo, F and reboot the whole thing, clear all of that shit out." I even start with other lesser characters before I bring in whatchamacallit, and then it would make sense to do your Hour Mans and stuff like that. Do a couple of those movies first to lead into your big Superman film. You know what I mean? Like lesser heroes, smaller heroes that develop the world out. Start showing how they're interconnected. Make two independent, like low-level characters to kind of turkey base the world. And then bring in Superman and do a Superman movie all over again in that same universe. You know what I'm saying? Then do all these other characters. Started off with Green Arrow. F it, go there. Kick off the universe with Green Arrow. Then do your Batman and then your Superman. The problem is as long as that Matt Reeves Batman is independent, they need Ben Affleck's Batman. Because you don't want to reboot a new Batman when Ben Affleck is around and you already had that to reboot and start this all over again and bring in a brand new Batman. So what are we supposed to do? Make a brand new Batman movie right now just for this universe to set it off first? It would be weird. Because then you'd have to start a one-off first before you bring him into that new DCEU. It'd be redundant. No one wants to do that. That's the main reason why they're going to try and keep this universe around. They'll run into too much problems that'll mess up the brand if he's trying to streamline everything. So he still kind of sort of, as long as he wants to make these character movies now instead of stopping everything and waiting for 5 years to reboot it all over again, he might as well. These characters have, these actors have contracts. And if you don't want to blow any more money, it will behoove you to pay attention to what you do have and see if you can salvage it. And I think that's what Zaslav will try to do. And if so, Johnny Depp can come back because it would make sense. I don't want to start this franchise all over again when I kind of know what I could do with this one. And post this as long as I drop this movie comes out, like as long as people's loving what Johnny's doing, that means, and especially if Johnny has puts out some decent work between this time and the time that they decide to even go that route, it'll just be like, you know what, let's do it again with Johnny, drop the budget down, be considerable with the budget, and let's see if we can write a real good story. Boom. They'll look at the Snyder, what's going on over there with, matter of fact, Harry Potter. They may even consider doing the same thing to just bring him back into this, to inject some new life and eyes into this series. Because from what I understand, the new Potter series is not as successful as the original one. You know, this prequel series is not doing it as well. You know, which isn't a bad thing. It's doing good enough that it's still making more movies. That's for damn sure, definitely. But not to the success that they was hoping that they would get by extending, you know, the universe and exploring like different time periods in the world of Harry Potter. Then there's Amber Heard. You know, for parody, it made sense for the WB to have Walter Amada make that. What was it? Deposition, stating that he kind of wanted to get rid of Amber Heard anyway from lack of chemistry with Jason Momoa, which might be possible. I would give it a possibility, but I also believe that a lot of that might be cap. A whole 50 fitted, a whole 50. A whole 5950, a whole fitted. I promise you, I could buy into it just being bullshit because you would need to say something like that because you want to distance yourself as far from her as possible, especially when she has that accusation on that makes her a victim of abuse, and that's not going to look right. So as you know, that public opinion has totally swayed from her, and you can kind of tell that she's full of shit anyway. You're going to try to make some hard pivots the other way, but you want to do it with some sort of respect, if you will, and just be like, oh, it's not nothing to do with this case. We was just not comfortable with their chemistry. Might be the 5950, but it is what it is. It's a good play. You want to position yourself in such a manner that I could walk away from her because she could ruin. Like, we already got way too much drama. The last thing we need to do is have to have you on the press route and a bunch of motherfuckers asking you about Johnny Depp. And this is the same studio that dropped Johnny Depp from another one. Will put you in a very bad position. And Zaslav wants to fix his relationships with the talent, and I can see him go back to Johnny for the Pirates of the Caribbean. But in this case with her, he would try to more than likely distance himself from her, and that's why they dispatched Walter Amada to make the deposition, if you ask me. If anything, he was dispatched. Now, there is a small possibility that everything he said in it was true, because there's also a possibility for that. We don't know what goes on. Some people utilizes they utilize the footage that they get to kind of create the chemistry out of thin air. But if there's no chemistry, there's no chemistry. I just think that it's a full-on cap because I'm sure that they were tested with each other from prior. I know Zack Snyder, if I'm not mistaken, Zack Snyder casted her first. Yeah. So I'm sure he tested her with Momoa like they said they tested Gal Gadot with Ben Affleck. But this is the industry. You got to do what you got to do. And I'm not surprised they did that. I'm not surprised if this was the case. That they just went out there and they just say whatever they can do to strategically distance themselves from Amber Heard. So slowly but surely they could start the process of severing ties from her. But again, I still believe I could still kind of give credit to Walter Amada in telling the truth, because it is also possible that in the Aquaman movie now, the chemistry between them just wasn't there. Remember, whatever Zack Snyder did for his film is one thing, but to be in this new film, and Lord knows what was going on during that time for her, because you know what I mean, when they was filming it, how maybe at some point there, whatever chemistry they seemed to have tested for to get to Justice League, when they really had to go there or certain scenes, it just didn't work. That's also possible, but told you how I feel about it. But in any event, this is the industry, and we have to pay attention to this. And this is why I always tell a lot of these YouTube pundits, if you pay attention to a lot of them, they operate just like the industry that they proclaim to be more virtuous about, if you will. You know what I mean? And after a while, when you start looking at your algorithms and reading things, you're going to start to realize this is how you want to present to your audience and what they like, and you're going to keep exploiting it out because you want to maintain the views, the viewerships, the followers, etc., etc. This is a business, and we're all trying to find ways to increase our followers, to increase our potential monetization. And some people will employ a lot of weird tactics. A lot of people will do things for attention. Some people will say some wild and outlandish stuff just for the attention. No matter how positive or negative, attention's attention, just to bring traffic towards their channel. And they'll do it. Why? Because eventually they want to be monetized. Eventually they want to be able to get super chats. That's why it's kind of hard for me to take a lot of them serious. But because just like the Hollywood machine, it's an industry, and they got to figure out what they can do to maximize their profits, to bring people, more customers towards them, so they can proselytize and sell and, you know, get off merchandise. And they got to go where the money is. And one of the best ways to gauge that is by engaging popular opinion. That's why a lot of people go towards popular opinion first before they ever bring you into the court. If they could destroy you in the public, in the eye of the public, then it's easier to bring you in with a half-wit case or accusation. Once it's in their mind that they surrender themselves to being able to see that in you, that negative in you, then it's easy for them to just say, you know what, F you. This is a business. It's an industry. You know, Zaslav is going to make the appropriate choices in that matter to maximize what will bring the most success to the studio. And if there's more money in depth and I could potentially lose money with Amber Heard, especially with how this case played out. I can cut my ties with her and nobody would be mad. Not even the Snyderverse fans, even whether I continue with that vision or not. And I do believe something to that matter what Zaslav will do. And I think he's aiming for a reboot. He's building towards a reboot. And I think he's going to give a few years of a curve for that to happen. But we'll get into that and my ideas on that another day. Without further ado, the question I ask you guys is, what did you think about the case? You know, how did you feel about it? I'm not exactly sure if I wouldn't even want to get too long-winded in it. I might do a separate thing to just kind of go over the key points of this case and to kind of basically show you from the Flicks, Picks, and the Nitpicks point of view when we get into the conversation about it, so I can at least get past the personal stuff and really focus on image, how it could affect and ruin a franchise, and why a lot of studios make the decisions that they do surrounded and based on the public opinion that was put out there to begin with, whether false or accurate. If it puts a negative spin on that actor can cast a mighty shadow over the film in and of itself. And then we'd have to make the appropriate adjustments and maybe even push back the film to make people forget. And then maybe we'll have to reshoot it. This has been done before. But now with Amber Heard losing, the question is how will this work in Hollywood? You know what I'm saying? Because now it's going to put optics on people having to be a little bit more reticent in terms of coming to their opinion or casting judgment on any type of case within this type of wheelhouse. Because now we actually see what the liar looks like and how far they will go. So now people will start, well, you can't just throw out accusations no more. People are going to expect a lot more substantiations for your claims. And maybe this will also motivate real victims, true victims, to start taking the appropriate measures and just getting out. And also making real documentations of what happened, so that when you have to come across, if you ever do come across these type of legal situations where you can appropriately defend yourself. But more important than that, you can start locking up these guys that actually do it, and kind of like put to shame a lot of those that lie on it, because that also happens as well. And I'll leave it up to you to figure out the ratio in that. To me, that ratio is just whack in and of itself. But the fact that there is a ratio, but that's neither here nor there, because I am curious to know what you guys think. And what do you think about how I approach this conversation? Because more importantly, what do you think about the business aspect of it? What do you think that the industry will do? What do you think Zaslav will do? Because I think Zaslav will have to try to find that happy median in parody for what happened to Johnny after he lost his case, to what happens to Amber Heard after she loses hers. And I think she's considered that, and I think she knows that this is a wrap for her. We'll have another conversation more on what could happen and should happen between these two, because I think this is going to be a fascinating perspective point. And also, most importantly, it'll also allow us to kind of further explore how agents will do to market their star, and what stars could do to take control of their their image, the industry around their image, and actually recreate it, prove that it's very malleable, and how you could make it take you to the next level, set you up for the next journey. We'll get into all of that down the line, man. But again, as always, like I said, leave everything in the comments below and like, share, subscribe. See you next time, and as always, I'll have a good outro. Chill.